Found another BeatMaster. So I think I'm gonna pivot. So, week 1 was supposed to be about building. Instead, I fell into naming rabbit hole, learned way more about trademarks than I expected to, questioned whether one of my app ideas actually made sense as a business, and I ended up making a pretty big decision. I'm putting BeatMaster on hold. Quick context if you're new here. My name is Matthew Ramirez. By day, I'm a cloud and platform engineer, and by night, I'm building Strove Studio, my software company. The goal of this channel is to build in public and document the real process, the apps, the decisions, the mistakes, and everything else along the way. So right now, the 2 apps I've been working on are BeatMaster, a music practice app, and Tally, a bill splitting app. So welcome to the week 1 update. All right, back to the pivot. I'm not putting it on hold forever necessarily. I still care about the idea, and I'll probably keep using parts of it for myself. But for now, I don't think it's the right app to push towards alpha. So the new focus is Tally, the bill splitting app I've been working on. So this week, I started looking at it more critically, rethinking the design, getting more serious about the iOS side of things, and I'm trying to get it closer to something real people can actually use. So this is week 1 of Strove Studio. Less building than I'd hoped, more soul searching than I expected, but honestly, probably the clarity I needed. So let's get to it. Before I talk about the pivot and what's changed this week, I want to talk about the naming homework I wish I'd done before getting emotionally attached to a name. Because this week, I ran into naming issues with both of the apps I've been working on. BeatMaster had one type of issue. When I first looked it up, I didn't see any live trademark that immediately scared me, and I didn't see anything obvious on the first page of Google. So I thought, okay, maybe this name is clean enough. But later, I found another BeatMaster web app that had more overlap with what I was building that I was comfortable with. And even if that doesn't automatically mean there's a legal issue, it's still a product and branding issue. I don't want to spend months building something only for users to search the name and find another app that feels too close. And I also don't want to build under a name where, say, 6 months from now, someone reaches out and says, hey, this is too close to what we're doing, so you got to change your name. So yeah, no bueno. Tally had a different issue. Tally's a great name, in my opinion. It's short, clean, and it fits the product really well. But when I started looking more seriously, it felt pretty crowded. There were existing trademarks and businesses that were close enough to the space, but I had to slow down and ask whether this was really a name I wanted to build on. So for now, I'm still gonna call it Tally in this video, but treat that as more of a code name. It's gonna change. And that's the annoying thing about naming. A name can be available enough to tempt you, but risky enough to slow you down. You might want to write that down. I'm not a lawyer, so don't treat this as legal advice. This is just the process I wish I'd followed earlier as a founder building apps in the US. The first thing I do is search the name like a normal person would. Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo, whatever search engine you use, but I wouldn't stop at the first page or the second. That's one of the things that bit me with BeatMaster. I'd search the exact name, close variations, alternate spellings, the name plus app, the name plus category that I'm building in, or the name plus iOS. You get the picture. So for BeatMaster, that might be BeatMaster app, BeatMaster music practice, BeatMaster metronome, things like that. The second thing I do is search the places where apps and products actually show up. So if you're building a mobile app, search the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. If you're building a web app, search for existing web apps, SaaS tools, Chrome extensions, GitHub repos, product hunt launches, anywhere a similar product might live. Because even if there's no obvious legal issue there can still be a branding and discoverability issue. So if someone searches your name and the first few results are already similar products, that's something I'd want to know before getting too attached to it. And even if one product is mobile and the other product is web-based, that doesn't automatically make them unrelated. If they solve a similar problem for a similar user, it can still get messy. The third thing I check are domains. For this, I'd go to a domain registrar like Cloudflare, GoDaddy, or Namecheap, and I'd start searching for the name there. And I wouldn't just check whether the perfect .com is available. I'm going to be using BeatMaster as an example here. A lot of apps and startups end up using domains like getbeatmaster.com or usebeatmaster.com, especially if the exact beatmaster.com domain is already taken. So I check the obvious versions, .com, .app, .io, in addition to those less direct names, the get, use, join, prefix names, all of those common variations. But honestly, the domains that aren't available can sometimes tell you more than the domains that are. So if these domains are taken, I'd actually open them and see what they point to. Is it a parked domain? Is it a totally unrelated business? Is it a premium domain that someone's trying to resell? Or is it another product in the same category? Because those are very different situations. And I'd also check more than one registrar. I mostly use Cloudflare, but I'll sometimes check other registrars too. Not because a normal registered domain is magically available in one place and unavailable in another, but because different registrars can support different extensions, they show premium domains differently, or they surface different purchase options for you. So domain searching isn't just about buying the name, it's also part of the research. The fourth thing I check is social handles, things like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, X, wherever the brand might eventually live. Again, this isn't just about whether the handle is available, it's also about whether the name is already strongly associated with something else. The fifth thing I do is search up the USPTO trademark database. So this is where things get a little more serious. You can search for existing trademarks, and when you find one, you want to look at whether it's live or dead, what the mark actually is, and what goods or services it covers. Trademarks are organized into classes, which are basically categories of goods and services. There are classes for things like clothing, which is class 25, and that would fall under goods, or computers and scientific services, which is class 42. But from what I understand, the class number by itself isn't the whole story. What really matters is whether the names are similar and whether the goods or services are related enough that people could reasonably be confused. So if I find a similar name in a similar category with a business description that feels close to what I'm building, I'm not going to pretend it's fine just because I like the name. And finally, I'd use AI as a second pass. I wouldn't use ChatGPT or Claude Code as the source of truth, but I'd absolutely use them as a second set of eyes. I'd ask them to search for similar products, similar names, related trademarks, app store conflicts, domain conflicts, basically anything else that might make the name annoying later. And all this to say, none of this guarantees you're safe. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I do think it gives you a much better chance of catching problems before you spend weeks designing logos, buying domains, building landing pages, and getting emotionally attached to a name you may eventually have to change. And in my case, once I seriously started considering a name change, it didn't stop there. What started as naming homework ended up becoming way bigger than just a naming problem. Once the name started feeling off, the whole identity started feeling off. I really liked the original BeatMaster aesthetic, but the more I played with the new names, the less the old design seemed to fit. So I went through name after name, design after design. At one point, I went full neo-brutalist, which looked kind of cool, honestly, but it just didn't feel like the same app anymore. And that's when I realized I wasn't just questioning the name or the design, I was questioning whether BeatMaster was the right business to focus on right now. That one was harder to admit because music is personal to me. I'm an aspiring, non-professional musician. I practice drums and guitar. I care about getting better, and BeatMaster came from a real problem that I felt. So emotionally, it was really easy for me to stay attached to it. But if I'm trying to treat Strove Studio like a real business, I can't only choose ideas because they fit my hobbies. I have to ask, what has the best chance of working? What has a clear customer? What has a realistic path to revenue? What can actually build, sell, and support as a solo founder while still working a full-time job. And the more I thought about BeatMaster, the more I kept coming back to the same conclusion, which I can be totally off about. I'm thinking the version of BeatMaster that might be most viable as a business probably isn't just a personal practice app for musicians. It might be a platform for teachers, students, maybe even schools. Something where instructors can assign exercises, track student progress, manage practice routines, and use it as part of their teaching workflow. And honestly, I think the app could support that really well, but that also changes the business. Now I'm not just building a personal practice tool, I'm building something closer to an education platform. That means teachers, students, parents, younger users, school requirements, and probably a lot more relationship heavy selling. And that could be a real business. I actually think there's something there, especially when looking at some of the existing products in the space. But it's also starting to become a different problem than the one I wanted to solve. Instead of just asking, how do I help musicians practice better? Now I'm asking, how do I build something that works for schools, teachers, and younger students? That's a valid problem. It's just not the one I feel pulled to solve right now. So I'm putting BeatMaster on hold. Not because I think it's a bad idea. I don't. I still care about it, and I'll probably keep using pieces of it personally. But I don't think it should be the main thing I push toward release right now. The main focus is Tally. So, where's Tally at? Or I guess I should say Codename Tally, because the name is definitely going to change. Before the pivot, Tally was still super early. BeatMaster was getting most of the attention. So Tally was more like the second app running in the background. I had a simple version working locally. I thought through some of the basic flows, and I'd taken a first pass at the data model and database schema, but I hadn't really gone deep on it yet. So this week, I wanted to give it a fresh start. One thing I didn't really like about the first version was that it felt a little too dark and utilitarian, and some of the workflows weren't as intuitive as I wanted them to be. When I think of a money app or cash app, especially one built around splitting things with friends, I wanted to feel lighter, friendlier, and easier to understand without making people stop and think about what they're supposed to do next. So I went back through the core workflows, designed a lot of the app, and started putting together some basic UI and UX standards, so the whole experience feels more consistent. So let's talk about some of the flows. The main flow starts with creating a split. You can snap or upload a picture of a receipt or bill, or enter everything manually if you don't have one. From there, you add the basic details, choose the people involved, decide how you want to split it, whether that's evenly, by percentage, or by assigning individual items from the receipt. And I've also been thinking through the supporting flows. Things like adding friends, creating groups, and keeping related expenses together. A group here would be something like a trip, a household, or just a recurring group of people that you split things with. Then there's everything that happens after the split. So things like keeping track of who owes what, recording payments, and making it easy to understand where everyone stands without having to do the math yourself. I'm still working through the exact details of some of these flows, but getting the overall structure right was one of my main goals this week. The design process I've been using is pretty simple. I don't have a ton of design experience, so I'm trying to find a process that works for me and lets me iterate quickly. So right now, that means starting on the whiteboard back there, sketching out the screens and user flows. And then I get feedback from my partner, Karen, when I can. She has a UI and UX background, so that's been super helpful. Then I move everything into Figma, where I can create cleaner wireframes, and just as importantly, erase the whiteboard and use it for something else. From there, I've been using Cloud Design to help me flesh out some higher fidelity wireframes and screens. I know some people have mixed feelings about using AI in the design process, but for me, it's been really helpful and useful as an iteration tool, and it helps me explore different directions faster, especially in the earlier stages. But I'm still the one deciding what actually makes sense for the product. I'm still refining this whole process, but once I've had a little bit more time to figure it out and see what actually works, I may make a more in-depth video about it. So if that's something you'd be interested in, let me know in the comments. I'm also pretty close to getting the landing page up. I'm reusing a lot of the structure from the BeatMaster landing page. So the main thing I need now is a final name, which apparently is the hardest part of building software. So let's talk about the tech stack. I'm going to get a little more technical here and throw around a bit of jargon, but I'll keep it pretty quick and high level. And if there's anything in the stack you want me to break down in more detail, let me know in the comments and I can cover it in a future video. This tech stack overview isn't completely finalized yet. I still need to think through some pieces, like how I'll integrate with whatever AI model you use for additional receipt or bill parsing, or how I'll handle fast friend search and username suggestions inside the app. But the foundational stack is pretty straightforward. So the mobile app is iOS first, and it's built in Swift. I do plan to support Android eventually, but it'll most likely maintain separate native code bases, and I'll be using Kotlin on the Android side of things. For authentication and user management, I'm using Firebase. The app signs users in through Firebase. My API verifies that identity before handling requests. And speaking of the API, I'm using FastAPI, which is a popular Python framework for building APIs. Definitely recommend it if you're using Python. And I'm planning to run it on ECS, which is AWS's Elastic Container Service. And it'll likely sit behind an application load balancer, or ALB, in AWS as well. And for the database, I'm currently using Supabase. I'm using Postgres, but with a more traditional architecture. So the iOS app will talk to the API, and my API will talk to the database. And that means that most of the authorization logic will live inside the API rather than relying on row-level security as the primary authorization layer. I may still add RLS later, but that'll be more so as an extra layer protection, and it won't be the main thing deciding what each user can access. Eventually, if the app gains traction, I may move the database over to RDS, so more of the infra lives within AWS. It could also make more financial sense at scale, although I'll need to actually run the numbers and compare it against Supabase. It would also give me more control over things like networking, scaling, backups, and observability, which probably appeals to me a little more than it should because of my infra background. But for now, I think Supabase is a fast and cheap way to iterate, and I think this gives me a solid enough foundation to start building without over-engineering everything up front. Yeah, that's the stack for now. It'll probably evolve as the app does, but it's definitely enough to get me moving. So that's where I'm at after week 1. BeatMaster's on hold, and Codename Tally is the main focus now. This week wasn't really about shipping a bunch of finished features. It was more about stepping back, thinking through the product, and getting a much clearer idea of what I actually want this app to be. I mapped out most of the main workflows. They're not totally final yet, but the overall structure is there. And I feel a lot better about the direction now. So week 1 definitely wasn't the clean, productive build week I had in mind. But honestly, I think I got something more useful out of it. Clarity. So I figured I should probably tell you guys what I'm actually working on next week. So here's my first attempt at setting some of those goals for these updates. And this might become a regular part of the videos, so let me know in the comments if you like having a little preview of what I'm working on next. So next week, I want to finish working through the remaining workflows and get the data model and database structure into place I feel good about. I also want to get the basic onboarding flow working locally, so sign up, sign in, setting up the profile, all of that. Then, I want to take a first pass at receipt scanning and text recognition using Apple's Vision Kit and the Vision frameworks. Nothing super advanced yet, but just enough to capture a receipt and start pulling useful information out of it. And I want to get the landing page live. The only small problem there is I still need an actual name, which is apparently becoming a theme. It's definitely a little ambitious for the week, but I think I can get there. So hopefully, by the next update, I'll have a lot more to actually show and a little less to explain. And if you made it this far, I really appreciate you watching. This first update took a few unexpected turns, but I'm honestly really excited about where things are heading. If you want to keep following along as I keep building Strove Studio, feel free to like the video and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next update.